The security guard's hand stayed firm on my arm. "Ma'am, I need you to step aside. You're not on the guest list." I stood there in the marble entryway of the Meadowbrook estate, watching 200 wedding guests stream past me into my daughter's reception. The bride and groom were somewhere inside, probably taking photos, and I, the mother of the bride, was being detained like a party crasher. "There must be a mistake," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm Barbara Chen. The bride is my daughter, Ashley." The guard checked his tablet again, his face sympathetic but firm. "I'm sorry. I have a Patricia Chen on the list as mother of the bride. Are you perhaps a plus one?" Patricia Chen, my future son-in-law's mother, the woman who'd inserted herself into every wedding decision for the past year. The woman who was apparently being introduced as Ashley's mother. I felt something crack inside my chest. Let me back up. 3 years ago, my husband Richard died of a sudden heart attack. He was 61, vital and healthy one moment, gone the next. We'd been married 33 years. He was a high school principal. I was a middle school English teacher. We lived simply, saved carefully, and raised Ashley in a modest 3-bedroom house in Sacramento with a mortgage we'd nearly paid off. After Richard died, I threw myself into work for another year before retiring at 63. The house felt enormous and empty without him. Every room whispered memories. His reading chair, the kitchen table where we'd eaten breakfast together for 3 decades, the garden he'd tended every Sunday. When Ashley got engaged to Marcus 2 years ago, I was happy for her, truly. Marcus seemed devoted to her. Came from a wealthy family in Silicon Valley. Worked in tech sales. Ashley, my only child, was building the life she wanted as a successful real estate agent in San Francisco. But within weeks of the engagement, I noticed something shifting. Ashley started mentioning how Marcus's parents had a vision for the wedding, how Patricia, Marcus's mother, knew all the right vendors, how they wanted something elegant and refined at the Meadowbrook estate, a venue I'd never heard of but apparently cost more per hour than I'd made in a month of teaching. "Mum, I know it's expensive," Ashley had said on the phone, her voice careful. "But Marcus's parents said they'd help." I should have heard the warning in that word. Help, not pay, not contribute. Help. 2 months later, Ashley called crying. "Mom," Patricia backed out. She said she'd only pay if we used her vendors and followed her timeline, but Marcus and I want our own wedding, not hers. I don't know what to do. This is where I made my choice. The choice that led me to this moment, standing in that entryway, not on my daughter's guest list. I sold the house Richard and I had bought as newlyweds, the house where Ashley took her first steps, where we'd hung Christmas stockings and hosted birthday parties and painted her bedroom purple when she turned 12 because that was her favorite color. It sold for $450,000. After fees and closing costs, I had $420,000. I moved into a tiny 1-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood I'd never lived in, surrounded by strangers, and gave Ashley everything. "Mom, are you sure?" she'd asked when I transferred the money. But I heard the relief in her voice, the excitement. "Your father would have wanted this," I told her, and I believed it. Richard loved Ashley with his whole heart. He'd have sold everything too. For the next 10 months, I watched my daughter plan her dream wedding. From a distance, Ashley was so busy with venue walkthroughs I wasn't invited to, with dress shopping Patricia accompanied her to, with vendor meetings scheduled during my nap time. Yes, she actually said that, as if I were elderly and infirm at 64, not a woman who still hiked every weekend and volunteered at the library. When I asked about being involved, Ashley said, "Mom, you already gave us the most important thing. Patricia just has more experience with this level of event, as if I were too unsophisticated to understand crystal chandeliers and French cuisine." The invitations arrived 3 months before the wedding. Heavy cream cardstock with gold embossing. "Mr. and Mrs. Marcus Chen, Sr., request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their son Marcus to Ashley Chen." Not one mention of me, not daughter of Barbara and the late Richard Chen, just Ashley Chen, as if she'd sprung fully formed from the universe. I called Ashley. "Sweetheart, I noticed the invitation wording. Mom, Patricia's parents are paying for the invitations, so we followed traditional etiquette. The family paying gets listed. But Patricia's parents weren't paying for the invitations." "I was," I'd paid for everything. The venue, the flowers, the photographer, the 10-piece band, the custom wedding dress Ashley had fallen in love with that cost more than my first car. I said nothing. I told myself it didn't matter. These were details. Ego. I was being small and petty. 2 months before the wedding, I asked Ashley about my dress. What colour should I wear? What style was appropriate? Oh, just wear something nice, Mum. Nothing too flashy. We want Patricia to stand out since she's so photogenic. Something nice. As if I'd shown up to important events in my life wearing trash bags. 6 weeks before the wedding, I tried again. Honey, I'd love to help with the rehearsal dinner. Should I coordinate with the restaurant? Actually, Patricia's hosting it at her house in Palo Alto. It's easier that way. You're invited, of course. Invited to my daughter's rehearsal dinner, like a courtesy guest. 4 weeks before the wedding, I asked if I could give a toast at the reception. Ashley hesitated. We're trying to keep the toasts short. Just the best man and maid of honor. Maybe Patricia will say a few words. I stopped asking questions after that. The week of the wedding arrived. Ashley was staying with Marcus's family in their 6-bedroom house in Los Altos Hills. I stayed in my apartment, alone, pressing my dress and wondering when exactly I'd become invisible to my own daughter. The night before the wedding, I attended the rehearsal dinner at Patricia's house. It was a stunning Spanish-style estate with a courtyard and fountain. 70 people mingled on the patio under string lights. I recognized Marcus's family, the wedding party, some of Ashley's colleagues. I walked in wearing a simple blue dress I'd bought on sale. Patricia swept toward me in ivory silk, her arms extended. Barbara, so glad you could make it, she air-kissed near my cheeks. Ashley's just inside. Let me introduce you to some people. She led me to a group near the bar. Everyone, this is Barbara. She's a family friend. Family friend. I smiled. I shook hands. I said nothing. During dinner, Patricia stood and gave a toast. She talked about welcoming Ashley into their family, about how blessed they were to have such a wonderful daughter-in-law, about the beautiful journey Ashley and Marcus were beginning. We've loved getting to know Ashley this year, Patricia said, her eyes glistening. Planning this wedding together has been such a gift. I never had a daughter, and now I do. The guests applauded. Ashley wiped tears. Marcus kissed his mother's hand. I sat at the far end of the table, moving food around my plate, wondering if anyone would notice if I left. No one did. Now here I was, the next day, being told I wasn't on the guest list for the wedding I'd paid for. Ma'am, I can call the wedding coordinator, the security guard said gently. He looked uncomfortable, like he knew something was very wrong but didn't know how to fix it. Please, I managed. He stepped away with his radio. I stood there, frozen, watching guests file past. Some glanced at me curiously. No one recognized me. Why would they? I hadn't been at any of the pre-wedding events. I wasn't in the rehearsal. My face wasn't on the slideshow playing in the lobby with our family's photos. A woman in a burgundy dress approached the guard. She had a clipboard and a headset, and the brisk efficiency of someone managing a crisis. I'm so sorry for the confusion, she said to me, not sounding sorry at all. Let me get this sorted out. She made a phone call. I couldn't hear what she said, but she kept glancing at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Pity? Annoyance? 5 minutes later, she returned. We have a seat for you. Follow me. Relief flooded through me. A mistake, just a terrible mistake. She led me into the reception space. It was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers dripped from 20-foot ceilings. White orchids cascaded from towering centerpieces. A wall of windows overlooked rolling hills and vineyards. Every detail was perfect. Every penny I'd spent visible in the shimmer and glow. The coordinator walked me through the room. Past tables numbered 1 through 20. Circular tables dressed in champagne linens, each seating 10 guests. We kept walking, past the dance floor, past the stage where the band was setting up, toward the back corner. She stopped at a small rectangular table near the service entrance. 2 seats. No centerpiece. No number. A folded place card that said additional guests. Here you are, she said brightly. I stared at the table, at the single small window that looked out onto the parking lot, at the swinging door behind me, where servers were rushing in and out with trays. There must be a mistake, I said. I'm the mother of the bride. Her smile faltered. I'll check with the bride. Please, have a seat. I didn't sit. I stood there, my purse clutched in both hands, my vision blurring. That's when I saw Patricia. She was at table 3, right near the head table, wearing a stunning champagne gown and holding court with a group of guests. She looked radiant, maternal, proud. And then I saw Ashley. My daughter floated into the room in her custom dress, her face glowing, Marcus's hand in hers. She looked beautiful, happier than I'd ever seen her. She was laughing at something Marcus whispered in her ear. She saw Patricia first, broke away from Marcus and rushed over to embrace her. Patricia held her like a precious treasure. The photographer captured the moment. Flash, flash, flash. Ashley didn't look around for me, didn't seem to notice I wasn't at a place of honor, didn't notice I was there at all. The coordinator returned. Miss Chen said this is your assigned seat. Miss Chen. Ashley was still Ashley Chen. Not Ashley Garcia or whatever Marcus's last name really was in the traditional sense, but the coordinator meant Patricia. She said what? The bride confirmed. This is your seat. If you're not satisfied, you're welcome to leave. Something in me snapped. Not the grief snap from Richard dying. Not the loneliness snap from the empty house. This was different. This was the snap of understanding. Of seeing clearly. Of realizing I'd been fooling myself for a very long time. I'll sit, I said. She looked relieved and hurried away. I sat at that table in the corner, near the noise of the kitchen, and I watched my daughter's wedding begin. The ceremony had been held earlier at a nearby chapel. I'd been there, seated in the 3rd row, not the front. But I'd assumed that was about space, about making room for Marcus's large family. Now I understood. I was never meant to be visible. I was meant to be peripheral. Background. A detail. The reception started with champagne toasts. Marcus's best man told charming stories. The maid of honor cried happy tears. Then Patricia stood. I want to thank everyone for being here on this spectacular day, Patricia began, her voice carrying through the sound system. When Marcus first brought Ashley home, I knew she was special. And watching these two plan their future together has been one of the greatest joys of my life. She paused, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief. Many of you know how important family is to me, and I'm so grateful I could make this day possible for them. This venue, this celebration, it's all a reflection of how much we love them both. The room erupted in applause. Make this day possible, she said those words. I could make this day possible. I sat very still in my corner table, my hands folded in my lap, my face a mask. I hadn't eaten, couldn't. My table-mate, an elderly man who seemed as confused about his placement as I was, tried to make conversation but gave up after my one-word responses. Dinner was served, filet mignon and Chilean sea bass, courses I'd selected from the tasting menu 10 months ago. Sitting alone at the venue, while Ashley was too busy to attend. I watched Ashley and Marcus at the head table, feeding each other bites of cake, laughing, glowing. I watched Patricia move from table to table, greeting guests, accepting compliments, glowing in reflected glory. Not once did Ashley look for me. Midway through dinner, I excused myself to use the restroom. I walked through the reception space, past all the beautiful people at their beautiful tables, and into the marble bathroom. I locked myself in a stall and let the tears come. Silent, shaking tears that I muffled with my hand against my mouth. My phone buzzed. A text from my friend Maria, who'd helped me pack up Richard's belongings after he died. How's the wedding? Send pics. I stared at that message. How was the wedding? How could I possibly explain? I didn't respond. I washed my face, fixed my makeup as best I could, and walked back out. On my way to my corner table, I passed table 3. Patricia was holding court, a wine glass in one hand, her other hand on Ashley's shoulder. My daughter sat beside her, looking up at her with admiration. I heard Patricia say, I'm so blessed to have the resources to give you two this start. Your father and I believe in investing in family. Several guests nodded appreciatively. One woman said, You've outdone yourself, Patricia. This is the most beautiful wedding I've ever attended. Ashley beamed. We're so lucky. I don't know what we'd have done without Patricia's generosity. I stopped walking, right there in the middle of the reception space. People probably noticed. I didn't care anymore. Patricia's generosity. Not my sacrifice. Not my $420,000. Not my empty apartment and sold memories. Patricia's generosity. That's when I made my decision. I walked to the DJ booth. The young man setting up the music looked startled when I tapped his shoulder. "I need to make an announcement," I said. "Ma'am, I'd need to check with the wedding coordinator. I'm the mother of the bride," I said firmly, "and I need to speak. Now." Something in my voice must have convinced him. Or maybe he saw the desperation in my eyes. He handed me the microphone. I walked to the center of the dance floor. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My hands shook. But I raised the microphone. "Excuse me," I said. My voice echoed through the sound system. "May I have everyone's attention?" The room quieted. Conversations died. People turned to look at me. I saw Ashley's face go pale, Patricia's smile freeze. "I'm Barbara Chen," I said, Ashley's mother. I saw recognition dawn on some faces, confusion on others. The coordinator was rushing toward me, but I kept talking. "I want to share something with all of you. Something I think you should know." Mom Ashley stood up, her face stricken. "Mom, what are you doing?" "This beautiful wedding," I continued, my voice steadier now. "This venue, the flowers, the dress Ashley is wearing, the band that will play in a few minutes, the dinner you just enjoyed, all of it was paid for by me." Silence. "Last year, I sold the house my late husband and I lived in for 33 years, the house where we raised Ashley. Where her father died 3 years ago, I sold it and gave my daughter every penny, $420,000, so she could have this day." I saw Patricia's face go red, saw Marcus lean over to whisper something to Ashley, saw 200 guests staring at me with various expressions of shock, disbelief, discomfort. "I'm not telling you this to embarrass anyone," I said, though that was partially a lie. "I'm telling you because the truth matters. When someone stands up and accepts credit for something they didn't do, it's called lying. And I won't let my sacrifice be erased." "Barbara," Patricia said, standing. Her voice was sharp. "This is inappropriate. You're causing a scene." "I'm correcting a lie," I said. I turned to Ashley. My daughter was crying now, mascara streaming down her face. "I gave you everything because I loved you, because your father would have wanted you to have it, but you gave me nothing. Not involvement, not recognition, not even a seat at a proper table." "I can explain," Ashley started. "You seated me in the back corner near the kitchen," I said. "You let Patricia take credit for everything. You didn't mention me in your invitation. You let her give a toast talking about making this day possible. You erased me, Ashley. You erased your own mother." My voice broke on the last word. The room was so quiet I could hear someone's phone buzz, hear the rustle of silk, hear my own breathing. "You know what the worst part is?" I said softly. "I would have given you the money anyway. If you'd just been honest. If you'd just loved me while I did it. But you didn't. You took everything I had and then acted like I didn't exist." I set the microphone down on the nearest table. It made a dull thud. Then I walked out of the Meadowbrook estate, out past the security guard, who wouldn't look at me, out into the parking lot, where the sun was starting to set. My phone started ringing immediately. Ashley, then Marcus, then numbers I didn't recognize. I silenced it. I drove back to my tiny apartment and sat in the dark for a long time. The next morning, I called my bank. The venue had required 50% up front, with the balance due 30 days after the wedding. I'd set up the payment to go through on Monday. I cancelled it. $210,000, half of what I'd given, gone. My phone exploded with messages. Ashley called 17 times. Marcus called 12. Patricia called twice. The wedding coordinator called. Then the venue manager. Then finally, a lawyer. I ignored all of them. 3 days later, I got one text from Ashley. "How could you do this to me?" I stared at that message for a long time. Then I replied, "How could you do this to me?" She didn't respond. The next week, I learned that Ashley and Marcus were forced to pay the remaining balance themselves. $210,000 they hadn't budgeted for. Money they'd planned to use for a house down payment. Patricia, despite all her supposed generosity, refused to help. "I already paid for the invitations," she told them. $400 worth of invitations. Marcus's parents' relationship with them cooled considerably after they learned the truth. Turned out they hadn't known about the deception either, and they didn't appreciate being made complicit in it. Ashley and Marcus's marriage began under a cloud of debt and resentment. He blamed her for humiliating his parents. She blamed me for ruining their wedding. I blocked their numbers after 2 months of increasingly angry messages. That was 6 months ago. Yesterday, I bought a one-way ticket to New Mexico. I'm moving to Santa Fe next week. A friend from college lives there and has room in her house while I look for my own place. I'm going to volunteer at a literacy center, maybe take some art classes, start the life I should have started 3 years ago when Richard died, instead of the half-life I've been living in this apartment, waiting to be needed by a daughter who didn't need me at all. Do I regret what I did at the wedding? No. Do I regret giving Ashley the money? That's more complicated. I regret not seeing sooner that my daughter had become someone I didn't recognize, someone who could accept everything from me and give nothing back, someone who could erase me from the most important day of her life. But I don't regret the sale of the house itself. That house was full of ghosts. Richard's ghost, the ghost of Ashley's childhood, the ghost of who I used to be. Maybe I needed to lose everything to understand what actually mattered. It wasn't the house. It wasn't the money. It wasn't even Ashley. Not the Ashley who exists now. It was dignity. It was truth. It was refusing to be erased. My friend Maria asked me last week if I thought Ashley would ever apologize, ever try to make things right. I told her I didn't know, and I didn't spend time thinking about it anymore. Some people will say I was cruel, that I ruined my daughter's wedding out of spite, that a mother should be bigger than that. Maybe they're right. But I spent a year being small, being invisible, being erased, and it nearly destroyed me. At 64 years old, I learned something I wish I'd learned at 20. People will treat you exactly how you allow them to treat you. And love, real love, doesn't require you to disappear. I didn't lose a daughter at that wedding. I discovered I'd already lost her long before, slowly, the moment I decided her happiness was worth more than my own dignity. That's a different kind of grief, the kind you can recover from. I'm recovering now. In a week, I'll be in Santa Fe. I'll be watching sunsets over the desert. I'll be building a life that's mine. And maybe, someday, if Ashley finds her way back to being the person I raised, we'll talk. But I won't hold my breath. I won't wait by the phone. I won't make myself small ever again. I gave my daughter $420,000. She gave me one priceless gift in return. She showed me exactly who she was. I just wish I'd believed her sooner.